Explore the remarkable life and enduring impact of Steve Jobs in this detailed biography. Starting from his humble beginnings in a garage and leading to his pivotal role in founding Apple Incorporated, transforming the technology landscape, and leaving an indelible impression on the global stage, this story offers a thorough glimpse into the individual responsible for the iconic Apple brand.
Steve Jobs was born in 1955 in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, California. But here's an interesting twist: his real dad came from Syria, and he was studying in the United States. Steve's mom, Siri, was an American college student. They loved each other and wanted to get married. But the rules in Syria made it impossible. So, they had to make a tough choice. They decided to give Steve to another family for adoption. But there was a condition: the new parents had to finish college. A lawyer and his wife wanted to adopt Steve, but there was a mix-up. They thought Steve was a girl, not a boy. When they found out, they changed their minds. Then, another couple wanted to adopt Steve. They didn't finish college, which was a problem. But they really cared about him. They promised to give him a good education. Steve's real mom saw how much they cared, and she agreed to let them adopt him. So, Steve was adopted by this loving couple, and he went on to become the famous Steve Jobs we know today. Steve Jobs had complicated feelings about his biological parents, but he deeply respected and admired his adoptive parents, especially his father, Paul Jobs. Paul had a significant influence on Steve's life. Steve learned two important lessons from his adoptive father. The first lesson came when he found out he was adopted. At first, Paul kept it a secret because he didn't want to hurt Steve. But when Steve's friends found out, they talked about it. Steve turned to his father for reassurance, and Paul told him, "You were not abandoned. We chose you specially to love you. You are an exceptional person." Paul was an engineer who loved making complex machines. He taught Steve to appreciate craftsmanship from a young age. Steve enjoyed building things, and his father's attention to detail, both inside and outside, later became a big part of Apple's philosophy. Steve deeply valued making things beautiful and functional. As Steve Jobs became the famous person we know today, he emphasized the importance of design to his engineering teams. Even though he wasn't an engineer himself, he passionately believed in design principles. Some engineers thought it was impossible. But as the CEO, Steve stuck to his vision. He guided the creation of groundbreaking products like iTunes, where design was crucial, and the focus was on the user's experience. Steve Jobs knew that combining design and technology was what made Apple special. Although he wasn't a technical expert, Steve Jobs was a visionary CEO and businessman. In 2007, he introduced a smartphone that changed history. This device combined the features of a phone, an electronic dictionary, a camera, and more into one elegant machine. Steve Jobs didn't always have top grades in school, but his determination and creative thinking led to remarkable achievements. His story shows the power of having a vision, a good design, and a strong commitment to excellence. When Steve entered middle school, he started exploring the world more widely. He went to a school called Crittender Middle School, which was known for being tough, with many fights and unruly students. His mom, Sue, decided to move the family to a place that offered a better life, which is now called Silicon Valley. Steve's experiences there had a big impact on his life. He really liked being around engineers and loved the atmosphere of Silicon Valley, even before it was called that. By 1939, lots of companies, like HP, had set up in the area, making it a hub for the IT industry around San Francisco. Growing up in Silicon Valley, Steve got to be around cutting-edge technology and young engineers. But during this time, Steve also got deeply interested in something that was happening all over the United States when he was in school: the hippie culture. The hippie culture was a response to the mainstream society of the time, which had things like the assassinations of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., and the Vietnam War that made many young people feel like they didn't fit in. San Francisco was a big center for this counterculture movement, and Steve got into it too. He had long hair, which was a big part of the hippie look, and he loved listening to music by Bob Dylan and the Beatles, who were icons of that era. He even collected bootleg recordings of Bob Dylan's concerts. Being part of this culture not only changed how he looked but also introduced him to music and the counterculture world. Steve's interest in counterculture didn't stop with music and style. When he was 15, he started experimenting with drugs, and it became a part of his life. By his third year of high school, he even tried sleep deprivation experiments, which involved staying awake for a long time and led to hallucinatory experiences. During this time, Steve Jobs was very curious. Although he didn't pay much attention to his schoolwork, he managed to get into Reed University in 1972 when he was only 17, without choosing a specific major. While at Reed, he explored a wide range of subjects like humanities, psychology, and philosophy. Influenced by the hippie culture, he became really interested in Eastern philosophy. However, he eventually decided that the classes weren't worth the money his parents had saved for his education. So he left Reed University after just one semester. Now, he needed to find a job, so he started making a resume. Interestingly, this resume gained a lot of attention when it was auctioned off in July 2021 and sold for $343,000. When you look at the resume, it's a bit funny. Even though he dropped out of Reed University after just one semester and didn't choose a major, he listed his major as English literature. What's also interesting is that he included electronic engineering and design engineer as specialties, even though he had trouble finding a job. One strange thing that people noticed was that he didn't shower very often. He believed in a vegetarian diet to purify the body and avoid harmful things, which made him skip showers. This made his colleagues uncomfortable, and they even complained about him. But instead of firing him, the company's founder moved Jobs to a night shift where he wouldn't have to interact with others much. You might wonder why the founder didn't fire Jobs despite his strange behavior. Well, the founder, Bushnell, found Jobs challenging but liked his unique qualities. Jobs said he could finish a programming task that would usually take 2 or 3 months in just a week. He was very confident, and that might have played a part in keeping him on board. Finally, Jobs got a chance to show his potential in the company. He was asked to create a video game that you could play alone. During this time, he reached out to someone very important in his life, Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was an engineer who would later co-found Apple with Jobs. They first met in high school when Wozniak, a talented computer designer, was introduced to Jobs through a mutual friend when they were both 16 years old. The picture you see here was taken when Jobs was 21. And they had been friends since they were 16. Wozniak had an amazing talent for designing and building computers while living in Silicon Valley. Even though Jobs didn't know much about technology and computers at first, he recognized Wozniak's brilliance. This meeting was the start of Jobs getting into the world of computers. And he learned a lot about technology through his friendship with Wozniak and his time at the University of Virginia, where he became skilled with Zoom technology. When his company asked him to make a single-player game in just 3 days, Jobs faced a tough challenge. Usually, making a game like that takes 2 or 3 months. With such a short deadline, he turned to a friend for help. At the time, Wozniak was working full-time at HP and was very busy. But when Jobs asked for his help urgently, Wozniak agreed. He did something incredible by creating the game in just 3 days. This game became a sensation, and many people loved playing it. The game was like bouncing a ball to break bricks on the screen, kind of like table tennis. It became really popular in Korea and was Atari's flagship game. With Wozniak's help, Jobs got recognized in the company. But here's a surprising twist to the story. Jobs got $5,000 as payment for making the game. However, he told Wozniak he only got $700 and gave him just $350. Jobs kept the rest for himself. 10 years later, when Wozniak found out about this, Jobs couldn't remember all the details. This incident raises questions about the early days of Apple and how Jobs and Wozniak worked together. Despite Jobs' brilliance and big achievements, there was a darker side to his relationships and actions. He didn't treat his close friend and Apple co-founder, Steve Wozniak, very well. He deceived and took advantage of Wozniak. When they worked together at Atari, Jobs tricked Wozniak into thinking he got way less money than he actually did. So Wozniak only got half of what he deserved. Jobs, who didn't know much about making circuit boards, made Wozniak do all the work. And he even lied about Atari setting a tight deadline because of his personal commitments. Wozniak didn't know the truth and worked for 3 days and nights, even when he was sick. This story, confirmed by Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, shows how Jobs treated his close friend. When questioned about this incident by Walter Isaacson, the author of the biography Steve Jobs, Jobs didn't give a clear answer. He hesitated and said that he always gave half of the money he got to Wozniak, which wasn't true. Wozniak was confused and didn't understand why Jobs had acted that way, especially since they were friends and had similar values. Despite these early challenges, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak went on to have very successful careers. Apple would eventually become the world's biggest IT company in terms of total revenue. Their journey started when they saw the first personal computer, the Altair 8800, and it inspired them to create a better one. Remarkably, just 5 months later, in June 1975, they made their legendary invention a reality. Wozniak's computer was better than the Altair 8800. But at first, he didn't want to make money from it. He wanted to give it away for free. But Steve Jobs had a different idea. He saw the true value of computers and suggested they start a company together to sell them. At that moment, Jobs used the $1.500 he got from selling his car to get what they needed. Wozniak was impressed by Jobs' passion and agreed. He added $250, which he got from selling an electronic calculator. They set up the company in a corner of Jobs' parents' garage in 1976. This collaboration between 21-year-old Steve Jobs and Wozniak gave birth to Apple, the biggest IT company in the world today. You might wonder why they chose the name Apple for the company. There are many theories about it. One theory is that Jobs had worked at a game company called Atari before, and he wanted his new company's name to be ahead of Atari in the phone book. So he liked names that started with A. That's why they chose Apple. Another theory is that they wanted the name to position the company ahead of Atari in the business world. Similar to how Isaac Newton famously discovered gravity under an apple tree. This choice showed their personality and ambition. When you learn the English alphabet, A often starts with Apple, so it has a nice ring to it. After they founded the company, Steve Jobs initially called it Apple I and started selling computers seriously. But back then, not many people used home computers. So they mostly attracted those who were really into computers. As a result, they didn't sell a lot of computers at first. Despite facing initial challenges, Steve Jobs didn't lose heart. He had a new mission: to make computers for everyone, not just computer experts. He wanted to create a user-friendly personal computer for the general public. This idea became a reality with the release of the Apple II. This computer combined a keyboard and a main unit, and it could handle graphics and display color on a monitor. This design laid the groundwork for modern computers. The outer casing of the computer was also a significant addition. Jobs believed one more thing was needed to show that it was a computer for everyone. The company Steve Jobs co-founded with Wozniak's help when he was 21 became Apple, the giant in the IT world today. The name Apple has different theories about where it came from. But without Wozniak, Apple might have struggled to reach the level of success it has today. However, Jobs' actions, like taking credit for tech achievements he didn't fully deserve, affected his character. As Jobs became wealthy through Apple, his behavior changed. When he left Apple, he initially denied being the father of his daughter Lisa, who was born to his former partner, Chris Ann. He only gave Lisa a small monthly allowance and falsely claimed he had a medical condition called azoospermia to justify his actions. This decision got a lot of criticism and seemed to be a source of embarrassment for Jobs himself. Even though Steve Jobs initially denied being Lisa's father, he eventually accepted her as his daughter after marrying Lauren Powell in 1991. When Lisa was a teenager. Part of the reason for his change of heart was because Lisa's biological mother was facing financial difficulties and couldn't provide for her properly. Despite this, Jobs may not be seen as a perfect father, even though he cared for and was concerned about Lisa. He named one of the personal computers made by his company Apple Lisa in her honor. And there are pictures of happy moments between them when Lisa was a child. In popular media, Jobs is often portrayed as having mixed feelings about the father-daughter relationship due to their complicated history. Steve Jobs had a life and personality that included brilliance, ambition, flaws, and an unending pursuit of perfection. This left a lasting legacy, not only in the world of technology but also in his complex personal relationships. Jobs had a complicated relationship with his biological father. At first, he didn't want to meet him because his father had a troubled relationship with Jobs' mother's family. And he left Jobs and his mother after Jobs was born. Jobs had some affection for his biological mother, who tried to find him an adoptive family that would ensure his education. But he seemed to hold negative feelings toward his biological father for abandoning him and not trying to connect with him later in life. Jobs didn't actively search for his biological father. However, fate had a surprising twist in store. It turned out that they had unknowingly crossed paths. Jobs found out that the manager of a restaurant he sometimes visited near his company after his success at Apple was actually his biological father. His biological father was aware of Jobs' celebrity status and liked that celebrities were coming to his restaurant. Jobs didn't seem to take offense at this revelation and even left a generous tip. As a boss, Jobs was known for being a challenging person to work with. People who worked for him described him as demanding and expected things to be done exactly as he wanted. When his instructions weren't clear to his employees or when the work didn't match his vision, he could get very frustrated. For example, he once insisted on changing the color of a fleet of delivery trucks that Apple had purchased because he felt they didn't match the color of Apple's building, which ended up costing the company a lot of money. Steve Jobs indeed had a reputation for his unconventional behavior and controversial actions, which elicited both criticism and fascination. Here are some instances of his idiosyncrasies. 1. Refusal to wear a patient mask, even when diagnosed with cancer. Jobs initially refused to wear a patient mask because he disliked its design. It took persuasion from his wife, Lauren, to change his mind. 2. Resistance to meeting President Barack Obama. He once tried to refuse a meeting with President Barack Obama because it wasn't arranged according to his liking. 3. Expressing discontent while ill. When faced with a terminal illness diagnosis, Jobs expressed unhappiness with presentations and criticized his subordinates, stating, "You're just wasting my time." 4. Criticism in the book Icon. In the book Icon by William Simon, Jobs was harshly criticized for his actions, including his treatment of others and management style. He reportedly removed all magazines from the publisher of this book from the Mac store. 5. Estranged relationship with Steve Wozniak. Jobs' relationship with Steve Wozniak became strained over time. They clashed over design decisions for Apple II, and their relationship deteriorated further when Wozniak left the company. Jobs also discouraged Wozniak from giving away Apple stock to friends and family, causing a rift. 6. Intellectual property disputes. Apple engaged in various intellectual property disputes, including those related to multi-touch technology with HTC and Unix's graphic UI with Sun Microsystems. 7. Sociopathic traits. Some observers have noted that Jobs exhibited behaviors consistent with sociopathy, such as manipulation and a ruthless pursuit of goals. However, he was never officially diagnosed with this condition. It's essential to understand that Jobs' complex personality and actions have been the subject of extensive discussion and debate. Opinions on his behavior vary widely. While he was undoubtedly a visionary and influential figure in the tech industry, his approach to leadership and personal interactions was often unconventional and polarizing. In 1991, The FBI checked on Steve Jobs when he wanted to join a special group for the government. They talked to people who knew him. Most of them said good things about him. One neighbor said he was quiet and polite. Sometimes, he asked them about their house while his own house was getting worked on. But some people who knew Jobs from a long time ago said bad things. They said he could get very mad and not always tell the truth when he wanted to win. These things happened before he became successful with Apple. In the end, they decided he could join the group. There was another time when Steve Jobs had trouble at work. His co-workers didn't like how he cleaned himself. He lived a different kind of life and didn't wash much. Because of this, people stayed away from him and even complained. Instead of firing him, they gave him a job at night where he didn't see many people. The boss had mixed feelings about Jobs but liked his confidence. Jobs said he could finish a big project in 1 week when it was supposed to take months. This made the boss keep him. After Jobs started Apple, he called it Apple One and tried to sell it. But not many people used home computers at that time. Mostly just computer fans. Jobs didn't give up, though. He wanted to make a computer for everyone, not just fans. So, they made the Apple II. It was a computer with a keyboard and screen in one piece. It could show pictures and colors. This was the start of modern computers. It looked good too. Jobs thought it needed something extra to show it was fun for everyone, games. He wanted computers to feel friendly and fun. He changed the logo to show this. The logo changed because of color technology. It stayed the same from 1977 to 1998, the time of the Apple II. People also liked the price. The Apple II cost $1.298 at first, which was cheap compared to other computers. Jobs' smart ideas and low cost made it super popular. So, how much money did Jobs make in 5 years after starting Apple because of the Apple II? He had $256 million. That's a lot. But it also came with big challenges. Even though the Apple II was a big success, Steve Jobs had a tough time because IBM, a huge computer company, became a rival. IBM made the IBM PC in 1981. And it was different. Most computers, including Apple II, used their own systems. And they didn't work with other companies' stuff. But IBM's PC could use other companies' software and hardware, which made it popular. IBM sold a lot of PCs, over 750,000, by 1983. Did Steve Jobs get jealous of IBM's success? Maybe. A picture might show what he felt at that time. At first, Jobs didn't care much about IBM. He even put an ad welcoming IBM. He believed in his company a lot. But when IBM started selling a lot, Apple was second. During this time, Jobs, who was already known for being a bit strange and stubborn, had problems inside the company. He became more divisive. And he would say bad things to people he didn't agree with. He also worked too much, even on Sundays, which was tough for his employees. Today, people would worry about these practices. Even though he was smart, could the company put up with this? After thinking about it a lot, the company told Jobs to step down from his project. But Jobs didn't want to do that. When engineers asked for more time, Jobs turned off the computer and made them start over. He led the Macintosh systems team with people he picked. And he wanted to finish the new computer in just 1.5 years instead of 3. Some people believed in Jobs and followed him. But many found it hard to work with him. The board of directors thought he was causing problems in the company. And in 1984, they were ready to show the Macintosh computer to the world. Still, Steve Jobs put a lot of effort into promoting the Macintosh. He spent a lot of money on advertising and got Ridley Scott, the director of Alien and Blade Runner, to make the commercial. They even wanted to show it during the Super Bowl. But some people in the company didn't like spending so much money, especially when IBM was doing better. Jobs tried to cancel the commercial, but it was too late, and it aired as planned. In the commercial, they showed IBM as Big Brother, the bad guy, and the Macintosh was the hero who broke Big Brother's screen to free people. It was a strong attack on IBM. The commercial cost a lot, about $1 million, which is a lot of money, especially back then. It was more like criticizing IBM than promoting the Macintosh. One of the big things about the Macintosh was the mouse. Before that, most computers used text on a black screen. But the Macintosh had a mouse, so you could click on things and use programs easily. It also had things like scroll bars and different fonts, which were new on computers. Did people like these changes? Imagine a world without the mouse. The mouse was a big deal. When the Macintosh came out in 1984, it sold well at first, with 70,000 units sold by May. But then, sales went down because it was made mostly for regular people, not for experts. Jobs thought the Macintosh was perfect, so he didn't let others make programs for it. IBM did the opposite and let other companies make software for their computer. The Macintosh was also more expensive, $2.495, while the IBM PC was $1.565. This perfectionism hurt the Macintosh. Jobs also decided to take out the cooling fan because he wanted the computer to look nice. But taking it out made the computer get hot quickly, which was a big problem. It also caused too many computers to be made, which hurt the company's finances. As the company had more problems, they argued about the future of the Macintosh. Finally, Apple's CEO at the time, John Sculley, made a big decision. And Steve Jobs had to leave the company he helped start. It was a big change. Steve Jobs had a great talent for finding smart people. But his strong personality made many of them leave. In just 1 year, from 1992 to 1993, 7 out of 9 top executives at Next, Jobs' company when he was not at Apple, left. But during this time, Jobs changed a lot in his personal life. And these changes were written about in the New York Times in an article called What Steve Jobs Learned in the Wilderness. Before, Jobs used to control even the smallest things and didn't listen to his team. But when he came back to the tech world, he started letting his team make decisions. He also started working more with his team in his presentations, instead of just talking about himself. If you follow Apple, you probably know people like Jonathan Ive in design, Tim Cook in management, and Craig Federighi in software. If you look deeper, you might know Eddie Q in negotiations, Phil Schiller in marketing, and Bob Mansfield in hardware. They are all very good at what they do. But in the past, Jobs didn't always listen to them and wanted to control everything. Because of Jobs being so dominant, many people at Apple were not well known. But as Jobs went through tough times, he got better at bringing in talented people and working with them. But when Jobs died, there were problems. And some people left. Like Scott Forstall and Bob Mansfield retired. Jobs also changed how he led. He used to want to control every detail even when he had good people working for him. But after his break, he learned to trust his team more and let them do their jobs. Jobs had a tough time when he was pushed out of Apple, the company he loved since he was young. He went to start a new company called Next. He studied why he failed before and made a plan to sell his new computer. But he didn't release any new products for 3 years and just focused on making them better. In 1988, Next made its first computer with its special software called Next Step. But it was too expensive and didn't sell well. But during this hard time, Jobs got lucky. Just a year after starting Next, the company bought a company that made computer graphics. They made a big hit with animations. And that made Jobs happy. The thing that brought Jobs back was Toy Story, the first 3D animated movie. Not many people know, but Toy Story helped Apple a lot. Steve Jobs helped pay for the company that made the movie, and it became a big success. Steve Jobs had a big impact on animation, similar to how George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, changed filmmaking. George Lucas had to sell his computer division, which did graphics, because he had money problems, including a divorce. Steve Jobs came in and saved the company, and he changed its name to Pixar. Steve Jobs really liked computer graphics and admired the people at Lucasfilm who mixed art and technology. He saw a lot of potential in this. He wanted to promote Pixar and make it a public company on the stock market. But because Pixar hadn't had big success before, some people were worried about how well it would do. Experts thought the stock price should start at $14, but Jobs wanted $22. Surprisingly, the stock price went up to $49 in just an hour when it became public. So Jobs became rich again. With $1.2 billion in Pixar stock. During this time, Apple was having money problems and their products weren't selling well. They asked Jobs for help, even though he was struggling with his next computer company. Apple was losing money and facing competition from Microsoft's Windows 95 and IBM computers running Windows. By September 1997, Apple had lost a lot of money, about $1.04 billion, and was close to bankruptcy. They needed an operating system like Next Step, which Jobs had made. So Apple asked Jobs to come back. Jobs had some doubts and wanted certain things, but he loved the company he helped start. In 1997, after 12 years away, at age 42, Steve Jobs came back to Apple. When he returned, he didn't take a big salary. He only got $1 a year. But he also got other money, like bonuses, during his 14 years as CEO. Jobs changed a lot when he came back to Apple. One important thing was how he made decisions and led the company. Steve Jobs changed how he made decisions when it came to naming Apple's computers, including the iMac. He let a marketing company handle naming Project C1. which would become the iMac. When they suggested the name iMac, Jobs asked for opinions, which was different from his previous way of controlling everything. At first, he wanted to call it McMahon, a name created by Phil Schiller. But people said it wasn't a good name for various reasons, and Jobs finally agreed to iMac. This shows how his leadership style changed. Jobs was known for his unique habits, like his vegetarian diet. He believed it made him smell better, even though some people said he had a distinct odor. He also didn't put license plates on his cars because California's law let new car owners go without plates for 6 months. These were some of his unusual practices. When Jobs did things like this, he could be tough on his employees and use strong language. But if we look at the human side of Steve Jobs, what would people say? He was not like most people. When he was in his 20s, he had many unusual habits. And he thought if he kept leading Apple this way, the company would go out of business. So he brought in a professional manager named Scully. Scully was a rising star at the time and the CEO of Pepsi, a cola company. Jobs asked Scully to come and run Apple, and he famously said, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to change the world with me?" Later, after Jobs came back to Apple, he said that he thought it was a crisis in his life. But in the end, it was an opportunity. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple, he made some big changes to fix the company's problems. One of the first things he did was a major restructuring. He said, "We found that 30% of our products were great, but the other 70% were good but not needed." Apple's quality had gone down, and some people called it a rotten apple. He felt that to make a great product, they needed to focus. So he decided to get rid of unnecessary products. Jobs had to let go of more than 3,000 employees during this time, which was tough for everyone. But they knew it was necessary for the company to change. Jobs was known for being honest and direct. He would ask employees in elevators how they could help the company. If he didn't like their answers, he would tell them right away when he got off the elevator. He was the same way in interviews, where he could be picky and sometimes short with candidates. Jobs was a hard worker and wanted to make Apple better. He changed the company from being disorganized to being focused on making new things. One of the first things he did was work on branding. He saw this as a way to show people a fresh vision for Apple. This wasn't just about a new phone, it was about changing how people saw Apple. Jobs used the slogan "Think Different" and made a big advertising campaign to show how simple and unique Apple was. He wanted people to see Apple as different from other companies. This slogan was also a response to IBM's slogan, which was "Just Think." Apple wanted to say, "We don't just think, we think differently." Jobs was competitive and wanted Apple to be better than IBM. In 1998, Steve Jobs made a change to his personal brand by adopting a new signature look. He started wearing black denim jeans and sneakers, which became his trademark style. At first, he wanted all Apple employees to wear this outfit as a company uniform, but they didn't like the idea. So, he decided to create his own uniform, which was a black turtleneck. A designer close to him helped make hundreds of black turtlenecks, and this became Jobs' distinctive look. Wearing the same outfit every day made Jobs stand out, and it unintentionally turned him into Apple's most recognizable spokesperson. His consistent attire reflected the simplicity and clarity that Apple wanted to represent, making the brand even stronger. Jobs worked tirelessly to bring Apple back to life, and he had many innovative ideas that amazed the world. In the early 1980s, during a trip to Tokyo, Jobs saw people using portable players with headphones to listen to music. This inspired the creation of the iPod. The original iPod had a simple and elegant design and changed the music industry. Alongside the iPod, Apple introduced iTunes, a music service where people could buy and listen to songs for 99 cents each, revolutionizing how music was consumed. Before iTunes, people had to buy cassette tapes or CDs. And in the MP3 era, downloading music from the internet was common, leading to piracy. Apple recognized the music market's problems and created an online music store where people could legally buy and enjoy music. The first iPod had a thin hard disk drive that could hold up to 1,000 songs. The success of the iPod and iTunes solidified Steve Jobs' comeback and marked a crucial moment in Apple's history. In 2001, Apple introduced a product that would define it as an innovation pioneer, the iPod. It combined Apple's technology with user-friendliness and exceptional design. If anyone ever wondered why Apple existed, the answer was the iPod. This groundbreaking device reaffirmed Apple's position as a leader in the industry. In 2007, Steve Jobs introduced a groundbreaking invention that would earn him the reputation of a visionary who shaped the 21st century, the iPhone. This marked the third major innovation in Jobs' career, and it was the creation of a mobile phone unlike any other. When the iPhone was first introduced, some people, especially children, couldn't immediately understand how it worked. However, the global response to the iPhone was nothing short of explosive. It was hailed by the media as the best phone you could buy at the time. This success was made possible through smart technology, and it all started with its design. Before the iPhone, cell phones were bulky and often had flip designs or keyboards that covered a significant portion of the screen. Jobs' vision for a thin, lightweight, and elegant design was realized. The effort put into perfecting the design was truly remarkable. Another aspect that made the iPhone stand out was its diverse and convenient range of applications, known as apps. These apps fundamentally changed how people lived their lives. Users could now manage documents or play games while on the go. Social media and instant messaging, in particular, gained immense popularity with the advent of the iPhone. Steve Jobs introduced emoticons to enhance communication through text messages. Although emojis were originally developed in Japan, it was SoftBank founder Masayoshi Son who suggested adding them to the iPhone to succeed in the Japanese market. Jobs embraced the idea, and emojis were introduced with the iPhone 3G in 2008. They quickly became a staple of digital communication, setting a trend for expressing emotions and sentiments through images rather than words. The iPhone initiated a revolution in the world of technology and gave rise to a new culture that was previously unheard of. It represented a cultural shift driven by technology and innovation, laying the foundation for a digital era where smartphones became an integral part of our daily lives. The global impact of the iPhone is truly remarkable and exciting. People all around the world eagerly anticipate each new version, forming long lines outside Apple stores. The joy and excitement of customers entering the store feel like a festive celebration. The iPhone is not just a product, It's a cultural phenomenon that transcends generations, borders, and ideologies. It's a testament to the passionate fan base it has gathered. In this era of advanced technology, the emotional connection between machines and humans is becoming stronger. Steve Jobs' legacy to humanity lies in his ability to merge technology with humanity and infuse it with a sense of artistry. One of Apple's notable innovations was the iMac, which is still vividly remembered by Jonathan Ive. Its transparent body allowed users to see the internal components, with flashing lights creating an almost otherworldly experience. It was a departure from traditional PC design and a testament to the creative genius of Jobs and his team. The launch of the iMac saw a staggering 800,000 units sold, attracting not only tech-savvy individuals but also those buying their first-ever computer due to its aesthetic appeal. Steve Jobs' focus on design over technology led to the creation of iconic products like the iPod and iPhone series, collectively known as the Apple Cycle. Many of these masterpieces were the brainchildren of Jonathan Ive, whom Steve Jobs mentored and promoted. The introduction of the iPod, in particular, left a lasting impact. It quickly made other MP3 players obsolete and transformed the way people enjoyed music. The shock and awe it brought were profound, revolutionizing the music industry. Even after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2004, Steve Jobs remained resilient and continued to innovate. His unwavering commitment led to the development of the iPhone, a device that fundamentally changed the way we live our lives. Today, it's hard to imagine a world without smartphones. Just over a decade ago, smartphones were not an integral part of our lives. The iPhone, introduced in 2007, changed that, making the world a more connected and convenient place. We now carry the power of the Internet, information, and communication in our pockets, thanks to smartphones.